Oh, we've hit the 0 mark. It is 0 hour. Time to get rolling. And I am, as usual, not quite ready for prime time. So give me just a moment here while I put all the boxes in place and make sure that we're up to snuff here. Now, are you on? Are you playing? Or is it just a little behind? There we go. It was just a little behind. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to JR's Woodshop. It's Friday, so for those of you who work a normal week, happy Friday to you. I don't work a normal week. I don't really work. So, I mean, I do, around the house, doing my stuff in my shop, but I am retired from my regular job, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Save your money. Put it away, because one day you'll want to be doing this. So don't just squander all those little dollars now. Put them away. The rainy day will come, and you'll want to be sitting at home when it's raining and not going to work. So put your money away. Save hard. Celebrate your life later on too, not just now. All right, let me arrange my little windows here really quick, and I'm just trying to get them all in there so that if anybody does have comments, you can type them into the comment boxes, and I will try to address those as I go. I check it periodically because, as I'm woodworking, can't always be staring at the screen or always know, but I do check back. So if you do have a comment or something, throw it in there, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Once again, my name is Jeff. If this is your first time in my shop, welcome. So what do we do here? This isn't really like an instructional type video thing. There are just, you can throw an acorn and not have a better chance of not hitting a tree than you do an educational video on woodworking. There's tons and tons of content, which is a wonderful thing. This is just basically me being social in my shop as I work on projects. And kind of, if you want to follow along, you can see what I'm doing, and I explain what I'm doing as I go. Some of the steps that are more boring to watch, I will skip and do those off camera during non-stream times, and then kind of save more of the mechanical, aspect of things, the figuring, cutting, doing, assembly, things like that. I'll do those on stream. Things like, sanding. Once you've seen me sand a piece of wood, you've seen me sand a piece of wood. And that's kind of boring. And I don't want to bore you to death. That's not why I do this, is to bore you to death. Basically just to kind of bring you along for the ride. So I do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 o'clock. I don't have a defined period of stream time, but usually it's around 2 hours or so, give or take. And I try to change my project stuff around so that there's a little bit of variety, and it keeps me interested in what I'm doing and hopefully provides some variety and interest for you as well. What else we got going on here? I have no idea why my Twitch stream chat just constantly spams, welcome to the chat room. There's a setting I need to fix on that, but anyway, if you do have a question, if you throw it in there, I should be able to see your chat comment in there. So don't hesitate to throw a chat in there. As I mentioned, I stream on 3 different platforms simultaneously. So twitch.tv/JR'sWoodshop, Facebook.com/JR'sWoodshop, and YouTube/Jeff Ravel. Just because I already had the Jeff Ravel name, and you can't change it very often. And also, I've got a lot of content there and people are subscribed, so I don't want to mess that up. It's been my channel for ages and ages before I even thought of doing this. So I don't want to change that one. But the Facebook link, facebook.com/JR'sWoodshop, all one word, is that's where my woodworking page is. So I also post pictures and little posts and comments and things on there, as well as where the live view shows up, the live stream. And then Twitch is just Twitch. I started off actually gaming a little bit on Twitch. So yes, I am a PC gamer, but mainly it was like to play with friends and my kids and stuff. And I'm not like super deep into the games necessarily. And I usually just play FPS type games. So mostly like Call of Duty type stuff and some Cyberpunk and things like that, but mostly Call of Duty. Warzone is my jam. But I started off like doing Twitch streaming and you know, I had like 1 or 2 people following me. It was, you know, just something to do. And my son's like, you should do woodworking. You should do, you know, live streams from your shop. And I kind of toyed with the idea for a while, then I jumped in, and that's where we are now. So a lot of gizmos and things to make it happen, but I'm a techie guy, so it's kind of fun anyway. So I just do this for fun. I'm not doing this to make a living. I'm not doing this to provide supreme educational material. If you learn something, that's awesome. If you have an idea for me that you think I could be doing better or whatever, give it to me, because I do not know everything. I am not a certified expert in anything. Well, you know, photography, if you have a photography question, I could probably help you out, because I did that for 35 years. But woodworking is something that I just love. It's a hobby. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I have organically built up my shop over time. It is a very small shop. I work in my garage. I basically take up about half the garage, maybe a little bit more than half nowadays. But I try to keep everything contained and small in here. And so this is how I work. I've got, you know, tools all around me. I kind of have to move things around. It is a challenge to work in a small shop. It does make it a little bit easier to film in here because I don't have to cover so much area. But it is a challenge working in a small shop. And I know that a ton of people out there are in the same position I am, where you're working in very small wood shops. You can do a lot of stuff in a very small wood shop. My workbench right here, which is a massive, huge workbench. I mean, huge in terms of like, it probably weighs 300 pounds plus. Has multiple vices, leg vices and end vices and center sections that come out. And I put drawers and stuff in the front, and all of this I made right here in my little wood shop. And with minimal tools, a table saw, you know, some other stuff. Half my stuff that I got was acquired over time. I've upgraded tools over time. So like right over there, that compound miter saw, which is a Delta, that was an upgrade from a little tiny one that I had for years. And I've got a CNC, there you go, CNC machine behind me. So that was added to the shop a while ago. My Delta table saw, I had a really janky little table saw at one point in time. So I moved up to this Delta. Yeah, so, and some of this stuff came from Craigslist, some of this stuff I bought new, and there's stuff that I want to upgrade and stuff that I'll probably keep for a lot longer. So it changes over time. Why are you disconnected? Sorry. technical issues here. Not sure why that disconnected. It should be connected. Um, but, you know, it would be great to just kind of like have a brand new space and a big pot of money and say, let's go make a shop. But that's not how most of us do it. Most of us do it over time. I have a magazine subscription I've talked about before called Wood Magazine, and they ran a really cool series of articles over, I don't know, over the period of maybe 5 months or 5 issues, I will say, which was basically how to build your shop from ground up, where it was like they were talking about budgeting for tools, which tools you should buy first, you know, what should you make in your shop as far as like cabinets and things like that. So they did a really great series on how to do that. I didn't follow that because I was kind of working with pre-existing space. But like if you moved into a new house and you wanted to make a shop in your garage, it was a great series on how to do that. So, oh, I know what my problem is. I've got my microphone pack in my pocket, and I had my phone in my pocket, and it was getting a little crowded in there. All right, so news of the day. Before we get into things, what's going on? Well, I got a really sad email today from Woodcraft because I've had an item, if you were watching, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, I had ordered a Veritas Deluxe Honing Guide system. It's basically a sharpening system for all of your planer blades and chisels and things like that. And it's this really cool system that you can get really exact, repeatable setups for all of your tools to sharpen them. And it was out of stock when I bought it, or it was like expected in. I think this was, oh my God, this might have been back in February. I think it was in February, and it was like, oh, it was due in March. And I was like, okay, you know, March. Let me go ahead and pull the trigger on that and buy it. And then when it comes in, that'll be great. So I did that. I had a gift card from Woodcraft, and I used that. I was like, this is awesome. And then came mid-March, and it was like, oh, we're sorry, your order has been back ordered. It's due to arrive April 15th. And I was like, or no, when I ordered it, it said April 1st. Yeah, that's what it was, April 1st. And then April 1st came, and it's like, oh, we're sorry, this is due to come April 15th. And I was like, oh, man, I've waited so long. Okay, I can wait a little bit longer. And then I got an email yesterday, I think it was yesterday, from Woodcraft that says the products below have been back ordered. We apologize for the inconvenience. As soon as your items become available, we will ship them. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact Woodcraft customer service. And then it tells me that my Veritas Deluxe Honing Guide system has a back order date of June 18th. June 18th. They're just skipping May altogether and going to June. And I'm like, what's going on? This is kind of ridiculous. June 18th. So anyway, I went ahead and sent I didn't do anything with Woodcraft because Woodcraft's just going to tell me, yeah, we don't know when it's going to come in. That's our best guess. They don't know. So I went onto the internet and Googled up Veritas tools. And I mean, if you're not familiar with Veritas tools, Veritas makes some amazing hand tools. I mean, they really do. Their stuff is super high quality. It's just, I've got one of their tools. I've got a hand plane. Hang on, let me grab this. This is a router plane that I got. So like this is a router plane from Veritas. And this thing is, let me see if my good cam here. So this is a router plane. And this is a beautiful, I mean, it's all really nicely machined steel and brass knobs and, you know, gorgeous smooth cherry with, look at that, with brass on the bottom. And this is a beautifully engineered piece of machinery, hand tool. And so they make great stuff. I think they're made in Canada. So I don't know if this is a pandemic thing, but this thing has been back ordered forever. It was back ordered. It hasn't been in stock anywhere. And I'm just like, what's the deal? So I found their website and I went on there and, you know, customer service, I sent them a message. I don't know if I'll get a reply, but I figured it's probably better than me trying to reach out to Woodcraft because Woodcraft certainly isn't going to know. So I reached out to them and hopefully I'll find something out because honestly, I mean, it's crazy that that tool has been out of stock, and it's not like it's some obscure thing. It is one of the best tools for sharpening on the market. It's the one that most people, if they are serious woodworkers, that's the sharpening guide that they recommend. I mean, if you go and look online and you find sharpening tutorials, half those people who are really high-level woodworkers are using the Veritas system because it is so accurate and repeatable, and it has micro bevel adjustments, and it's just really good. And I'm this close. I even bought new whetstones, and I was like so super excited. But anyway, so that's kind of what happened there. Not a lot that I can do about that. But you know, it is what it is. You kind of just have to figure things out, and I guess, you know, I'm not really losing anything out right now, so I just keep sitting back and waiting with my dull tools, and yeah, that's about it. Not a lot else going on in the woodworking world that I can see. You know, everybody's still kind of trying to get back into things. There's no woodworking shows that I know of that are going to be taking place this year. At least maybe not till late in the year. There was one that there's the woodworking show. Yeah, it's the woodworking show, which usually takes place from January through the end of March. And that one they just did a virtual show, so that one isn't going to happen, which is disappointing because they have one here near me. One of their stops is near me, and so I like to go to that every year. And I spend some money, and I go to a couple of the seminar things, and it's kind of fun. But also the Workbench Con, I don't think that one is happening this year. I don't believe it is. Let me check and see that one. Let me add a little tab here and check Workbench Con. That one is usually down in Atlanta area, and which they call it the Conference for woodworkers and master craftsmen or content creators. So it's basically people who do content creation and things like that. But I do not see a schedule for that to happen. And that's one that, now that I'm retired, I would love to go to that. But I'm looking to see if I can find a schedule for that one here. And if you go to workbenchcon.com, yeah. So this says, this happens in February. So this did not happen in February, I don't believe. I think this got canceled for February. So this probably would not kick off again until next February. But it's like a week-long thing. It's kind of cool. All the big names, Jimmy DiResta and who else is there? Ellen Smith and Bruce Ulrich and, you know, Paul Jackman and a bunch of creators and folks that do stuff. Designs by Donnie. He makes some amazing stuff. He's got a great YouTube channel. So it's a great place to go. John Malecki, Johnny Builds, all these people that are probably your favorite YouTubers if you watch woodworking videos are all usually there. So that's not till February, I don't think. And so that probably will not happen. Yeah, I think the last one was 2020 was scheduled, and I don't think that one happened because it was in February, and that was like full lockdown. So that probably did not happen. All right, let me pull my windows back here so I can get them in the right shape, in the right place. Sorry. But anyway, so there's not much going on in the world of woodworking, but you know, most of the stores are now open though, so you can go to your Woodcraft or, you know, wherever your Rockler, if you have one of those. If you're lucky to have a woodworking shop near you, I'd love to have a Rockler near me. I don't have a Rockler. I've got a Woodcraft that's about 40 minutes away, but I would love to have one of those near me. But anyway, you know, you can go out and start getting stuff and buying things and visiting the stores again if you've had your shots, and be safe. So I think a lot of these places are opening up, and hopefully the same thing will happen with Veritas, that maybe they were shut down for stuff and maybe they'll start opening back up. Like I said, being Canadian, I don't know how they did things up there with the pandemic. So I don't know if they were on full shutdown or what the story was. I haven't seen anything in the news or stories about them. But hopefully they open up and they can start making tools again, because I really want my tool. I want it so bad. Anyway, I'm going to stop crying now because, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. What am I going to do now? Well, now I think, you know, I finished my coffee here. Almost. And we can start working on finishing up, or not finishing up, but continue with the work that we're doing on this project. Let me bring it over here. And let me get the computer out of the way. All right. So we have this right here. This is, well, it looks like a box, right? It's a tall box, which really is what it is. This was a request from my son for his girlfriend, that she has a new apartment, and she's excited about putting her own stuff in there. She's lived with roommates and stuff, so she wanted a utensil holder, you know, just spoons and spatulas and things like that. So he requested I make a utensil holder for her. And so I gave it some thought. I was like, well, could I make a round one? Well, I would have to probably do that on a lathe, and my lathe isn't really big enough to handle something like that. And so, well, I can make a square one. And that's where we are right here. So what I did with this was I made miter joints. So nothing fancy on the joinery. It's just 45-degree angles on here. Cut those out on the table saw. And the big thing that I did yesterday, or yesterday on Wednesday, was I did an inserted bottom that actually extends past the bottom of the box, so that it has a little bit of a shadow relief on there. And I struggled with that. My measurements were off. So this was my first one, and you can see it's it's supposed to fit so that it actually goes into a little lip or a dado that's carved into the bottom here, into the sides. But I drastically underestimated the size that I needed. So I went and redid that. I actually found another piece of wood and redid it. And then I assembled the whole thing and put it in the clamps. And that's where we left off on Wednesday, was in these nice band clamps. These are really cool. One of these is from PowerTech and one's from Bessie. To be honest, I like the PowerTech one better. It's to me, it's a little easier to use. The Bessie one's a little fussy, and I don't like these little corner clamps as much. The little holders that sit in the corner. The theory is the same behind all of them, is that you put them in here and you tighten it up, and then you kind of lock it down, and then there's a handle. There's handles on the side here. I don't know if you can see it better with this camera. So there's handles over here on the side, and as you tighten these handles, it basically pulls it sucks the band down inside and creates even tension across the entirety of the square, whatever you're doing. This one just seems to me, this PowerTech just seems like it's just easier. And pardon me, I got a message here. I have to look at this and see what's what. It's so ridiculous, but yeah. I have to deal with something really quick. Give me just 1 minute. We'll be right back. Sorry about that. Just had to take care of something really quick. And I didn't want to bore you with it. All right. So anyway, where we're at now is I'm going to take these clamps off. And because these are mitered corners, I mean, I glued them up really well, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the strongest of joints. The mitered corners, if you're making a box with mitered corners, or if you're making a picture frame is a good example. Picture frames especially are usually end grain coming together in a miter, and gluing end grain is really probably one of the weakest joints you can make. If you've ever had a picture frame that broke at the joint, it's because gluing end grain to end grain almost never a good idea. It just almost never works. In order to actually make that work, what you do is you add a spline, which is a piece of wood that you cut a slot in here, and you insert a piece of wood in there, a flat piece of wood that fits perfectly in there and is glued. And then as that glue dries, it really adds some strength to that joint by giving some flat, straight grain in there for things to hold on to. And then you just trim it off flush with the outside. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to add some splines to this to give it some stability and some strength. Now, this hopefully won't take a ton of abuse. Let me I'm going to loosen this all the way up, and then I'm just going to kind of tighten it back up here so all of this kind of sucks back up into here just to get it out of the way. So I said, I'm not really a huge fan of this design of the Bessie. I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong, it does work, but it has a lot of extra, whatever you call this, strapping to tighten. So you can do a very large box with this. It doesn't have to be something small. You can do something very large with this, like big boxes or whatever. It works, the concept works the same. But this one, the PowerTech, just to me is a smarter, easier to use design. Just loosen this up all the way. There we go, that fell off. And it has these little wings on here, so I could just quickly undo that and then pull these tight like this. And then I can just get this strapping out of the way. You can lock these down, and then I can just tighten this again. So this one, this PowerTech right here, if you're looking for one of these things, I can give you a better view. Like I said, this is the PowerTech, and I highly recommend this particular one over the Bessie. The Bessie works, but I think it's a little bit more expensive, and honestly, it's a little bit more fumbly to use. The PowerTech one just seems to be a smarter design. So, which is weird because usually I'm a big fan of the Bessie stuff. I've got Bessie clamps, and they're really good clamps. Band clamp, not so much. All right, oh, coffee's done. So here's the box utensil holder that I made. It has a captured bottom. Let me get close up here so you can see this. So it does have a captured bottom. If you can see there, the bottom is just a little proud of the sides. And that's what I wanted, basically to give, so when it sets on the ground like this, you notice there's a little shadow underneath there. It's not like super, like if I did it this way, it would just be really flat on there. But I did this bottom like this, and you can kind of see it there in the camera. Right? So I did the bottom like this, so it sits just above, and that is I did a little 45 bevel on there. So when it sits on the bottom like this, you just get this nice shadow look to it. Which my stuff is sitting here blocking the light. But anyway, you just get this really nice shadow, and I really like that little shadow line right there. And I think that looks really nice. And so now what we have to do is take the tape off of here. I used the old tape method where I put these, the outside surface on the ground and matched them all up, and then I taped them all together with strips of tape to hold them so that when you actually fold it up, the tape acts kind of like a clamp to keep them perfectly positioned And there's lots of videos to show you how to do that. It's not that crazy. If you want to go back and watch the live stream, go to the end of the live stream last week, and you can see how I did these. It's not super complicated, but it's super effective. And whenever you're doing a mitered box, miter joints on a box like this, really effective way of doing it is just to use tape. And tape all the corners, tape it side to side, so when you fold it up, those miters are perfectly matched up, keeps them from sliding around, and then allows you to kind of like close up the box to get clamps on it, because clamping miters is difficult, and that's where these particular clamps come in handy, is doing mitered box joints, because they are really hard to get equal pressure on unless you have something like that. But anyway, I'm going to take all this glue. Now the glue right here on the long glue, that was mainly to keep glue squeeze out from coming out the corners here. If there was, I was very sparing with my glue. I don't do a ton of glue, but I wanted to keep as much coming out from the sides as possible. And this turned out, so these joints turned out really nice. You can see that that's just really pretty. And I did really nice, I got some nice cathedral grain cherry going on here. So you can see that. That looks really nice. So, you know, I could just be finished like that and then be like, oh, there's your utensil holder, but come on. We can do better, right? So the first thing that we're going to do to get better is we're going to add splines in here. We're going to add one to the top and the bottom of each side. So we'll put some splines in there. Those splines will add strength and keep these things really held together. So that's the one thing, is we want to reinforce these joints, because you can see, I mean, that's, if you can see them here, so these joints right here, they're just two 45s meeting together. And even though it's long grain, so if you do it like these, that's long grain that's glued, but it's still not the strongest of joints. So in order to strengthen that joint, we are going to add those splines. And to do that, so I don't do anything too fancy. What I use is my table saw. I use the table saw blade width, which the kerf that it makes, which is like an 1/8 of an inch, which I did a test cut in this board right here. It didn't go all the way. I didn't want it to go all the way through. I just wanted to make a test cut on here to see, okay, this is how wide my blade is going to cut. Then I got a piece of walnut right here, and I cut this down to a specific width, and then I cut off a sliver of that should be, so this piece that I cut off right here should be the same width as this slot that I cut, and it is. So it fits in there nicely. You know, you don't want it to be super tight, but you want it to be tight enough that it's going to give you some good surface in there. And then what I'll do, now you don't need the whole thing. What you really need to do is cut triangles out of this. So you cut little triangular shapes, because when you put this on your box, you're going to be just sliding in little triangles into here. And then you don't need a big giant, I mean, you could do a flat piece of wood, but you can actually get more out of this piece of wood if you do triangles. It just needs to be wider and deeper than the slot. So it'll kind of make sense as we go. I probably will need to cut, I think I can get 6, I measured. I think I can get about 6 splines out of this. Unfortunately, I need 8. So I would probably have to cut 1 more out of this piece of wood. But that's okay, that's what this is milled up for specifically, so we can add some splines in. And this was just a test to make sure that this was the right measurement to fit in that kerf. The other thing about these is, like I said, you don't want them too tight, because you're going to be putting glue on these. And if you put glue on them, glue takes up space. It's not like, you know, it doesn't occupy any space in here. So glue does take up a little bit of space, and you want to make sure that it's not going to be so tight with glue on there that you can't get it seated all the way down into the cut that we're going to make in here. Now, to make those cuts, we're going to use a jig. This is a very dirty jig. Hang on a second before I bring this up on my table here. We just kind of sits down underneath, and picks up a lot of sawdust and stuff, and the spiders seem to like it a lot. I tell you what, I will be so happy when, well, not when. The one reason I like working in my shop in the wintertime is not the temperatures. It's the fact that I don't get spiders in here in the wintertime. Man, the spiders are just horrible. They just cobwebs all over the walls and everything. I hate that. This, whoop, there we go. This is a spline jig. And you know, it's not overly complicated to make one of these things. You can see we've got 2 pieces of wood. They're kind of thick here. This is just a 2x4 is all that is. Pieces of 2x4 cut at a 45-degree angle. So hopefully you can see that. I mounted those onto this flat piece of wood right here. So this is a piece of plywood, so it's very flat. Mounted these onto the plywood. I drew a straight line down here. You do not want these to be all the way at the bottom, because what you're going to do is you're going to pass your saw blade across here and cut a groove. So this would fit. So when I'm going to get that, I'm going to cut the, oh, there we go. So I'm going to put this in here like this, and it fits perfectly. You can see it fits perfectly on that 45, but part of it, I don't know if it's better to view it here. So part of it actually hangs down below that 45. That part that hangs down below the 45 will get cut with the saw blade and create a kerf cut into the bottom or into the side. I will then rotate this. So I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to cut each side and just rotate it and cut each one until I get all 4 of them cut. Then what I will do is I'll swap it over to this side and I'll do the exact same thing. And I will cut 2, 3, 4. So I'll cut 4 of them in there and on each end. So that'll give me 8 splines altogether. This actually has a little channel that goes over the arm of my table saw. And let's see, I got a camera there. So this will actually fit over the table saw like that. And then I pass this. I got to take all the stuff off this thing. But I would pass this across the blade, and I have to measure how high I need that blade to go because that's the depth of cut and everything. But that's the general premise. So we will start and we will do something like that. Okay. Now, the splines are nice and they're kind of decorative. They look okay. But I thought, you know, what would be really nice is if I did like a little decorative strip of maybe some walnut, just a decorative strip of walnut going around this thing. I was like, well, that'd be kind of cool. So I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can find some stuff to do that. So I found another long strip of walnut, and then I carved out this teeny thin strip. This is very thin, so I'll show you holding it in my fingers. You can see how thin this is. Probably less than 1/8 of an inch, because I'm going to do like an inlay is what my plan is. So I will cut, actually I'm going to go back here again. Sorry to keep switching you. I'm going to cut basically a dado in the side of the box, and then this strip will be set into that dado. Now this is a little larger than I wanted. I'm going to make it a little smaller than that, but that's okay. I can control how wide that is. But as you can see, then I'll have this really cool strip, and I'll do this all around all 4 sides, and then it'll glue in. So that, I think, will look pretty cool. So I've got this already. This will accommodate the entire box. So this strip, I've already cut that. Like I said, you didn't need to watch me do that. I will have to cut that strip. I was doing testing, and that's why I have this piece here, because I was testing how deep, how wide, you know, would it look good, that kind of stuff. So after I get the splines done or cut, we can go ahead and do the decorative piece as well. Now that is going to be a little different in terms of clamping, and then I might have to clamp, because it's harder to get that clamping pressure in there. I might have to actually put clamping cauls on those to get it to clamp evenly across the faces of the stuff. You do not need clamping. You do not need to do any clamping with the splines. You stick them in there, You get them all the way inserted, and then you just let the glue dry. So that's what you do with those. Those are pretty easy. These, because they're going to be flat and flush against the face, will definitely need to have some clamps on there in order to let that glue dry and keep it set up against there. But that, I think, will look nice and decorative. And then when I get all done, what I'll do is I'll trim off all the splines, and those will, and all the pieces will get sanded, all the sides will get sanded, and then I'll put something on here, like I might use, I think I've got some salad bowl finish, which is a food grade type finish. As if you make salad bowls, you put the wooden salad bowls, you put that on there, and that way it'll add just maybe a little bit of protection, because, you know, if she does happen to put something and you dry it and put it in there, it's not quite dry, then we don't want that to mess anything up. Now, before I do the splines, I noticed that I do have one side here that this is just a little proud, a little taller, and I probably need to flatten this one out just a little bit, so that when I put it in the spline jig, because what will happen is as I put this in the jig, these sides rest against there, and I need that to not be sticking up, because otherwise, if this one's a little taller than the others, it's gonna cant it just a hair, and they won't be nice and straight. So I'm gonna try, before we do this, I'm gonna try to just take that side down a little bit. I'm trying to figure out the best, probably this way. And I need to, so I'm gonna clamp this in here, and I need to use, I will use this, but what I'm gonna do is grab a little bit of wax and wax the bottom of the sole of the plane, so that it slides smoothly. I'm just grabbing a paper towel here really quickly, and I'm just gonna wax up the sole of the plane. And what that's going to allow is that to travel smoothly across there, and it's just a more efficient cut, because otherwise you'll hear like a bunch of squeaking, and it's very annoying actually. So to do this, it's not hard. I'm just going to take a little towel and get a little paste wax on here. This is Minwax finishing paste. You can use Johnson finishing paste. It's furniture paste is all it is. But I use this on tools. I use it on my cast iron parts and such, and it minimizes, it protects, it helps things slide smoother. So I use it on my jointer, I use it on my table saw. Yeah. And I'm just putting a coating on here on the bottom, and can let that set up for a minute. Doesn't have to be fantastic on here, but that's probably more than I needed. But yeah, it's probably time for me to do this on my larger tools, and I would like to do this in the springtime, generally before the humidity creeps up, because what happens is as the humidity increases in the air, the chances of your stainless steel tops and stuff, where every little scratch or mark or whatever, that humidity is going to basically create rust. Stainless, or not stainless, but cast iron is really prone to rusting if you don't take care of it. So I've got 3 general surfaces that I put this on all the time, which is my table saw, the top for my bandsaw, and my jointer over there. And so all 3 of those, the beds of them, usually get a nice layer of paste wax, because number one, it helps the wood slide across easier. And I usually do, like I said, I do that on my planes as well. But it helps the wood slide easier, but it also adds protection against the weather. It just keeps them from getting moisture damage. And like I said, if you've got anything that's cast iron, smooth cast iron, you really have to take care of it, especially in a garage atmosphere. If I was in my basement where it's climate controlled, that really wouldn't be a thing. I wouldn't care. So much. I mean, I would care, but not so much. I would probably do it just to aid wood sliding, but I wouldn't really need the protection that I do out here. Because I'm out, and this is not climate controlled out here. Oh, when I did that. This is not climate controlled out here at all. So in the summer in Virginia, Northern Virginia, when we get humidity that's in the, 80 to 90% humidity, yeah, it gets nasty humid here. And there's nothing to protect it. I don't have anything to remove all that humidity from my garage. It's not even worth trying. So just do the next best thing, which is to protect your tools. So you put a little paste wax on them, and hopefully that does the deal. And so I'm just rubbing all this paste wax off. Ideally, I would let this set on here for about 15 minutes or so, but I want to get moving on this a little bit, and it should be enough. And it should glide nice and smoothly across the top here, and that gives you a better cut as well, because if it's not, what happens is you'll get these little stutters as it goes. It'll stutter, 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 and the stuttering doesn't allow the blade to cut smoothly. And what I'm looking for is to just get everything down to the same area. Like I said, this was just a hair taller, but now because this is, and it's end grain, which makes it even tougher. There we go. And I'm trying to keep it flat. So just want to trim off little bits until I get everything kind of even. And that should hopefully give me nice square cuts on my jig. You can see I'm getting little thin shavings here, so I'm getting cuts on here. End grain is incredibly difficult to cut. Now this has been sharpened fairly recently, so it should be sharp enough to do this. You definitely don't want to do this with a dull blade. I'm getting close now. And the other thing is it just gives you a better looking joint. So, but I'm trying to be really careful that I don't come across and go past this point with the blade, because there's a much larger chance of it chipping out, and I don't want that. But this is pretty close right here. That is, there we go. That is very smooth now in the corner. That joint's good. This is a little high over here. I'm going to do this one as well. So I'm going to just bring this one down, just so they're all even and smooth. It's just a little bit more here, just a tiny bit. Woo! Not only that, but it gives a nice finished look to this. Let me see if I can just run. Yes. Oh, see, chip, chip, chip. That's what you want to avoid. See, I just say things and then I go and do things opposite. And it's just like, sometimes I am a big goofball. I might have to do a little bit of super glue in the corner there, but that's okay. All right. That got everything square. And flat. And now when this fits into the jig, it will fit against the side. So that's the thing, is you want this fitting right flush against the side so that you get nice, square, even stuff over here. Okay, let's move over here, shall we, to the other table. And let's set up for doing some of this. So I got to figure out exactly what I'm going to need here. Let me put my wax away, because we don't need the wax now. So wax is away. What I do need to do is clear my extra tools off of this lid, because it will not sit flush on top if they're, there we go. I just don't want stuff interfering with it. And then we have to figure out how far we want these splines to be. So I'm going to lower this blade right now, because I don't want it to mar anything while we're checking this out. This is going to sit in here. It's going to ride. It rides on this tabletop right here, is what it does. Now, I could I could actually like sand this area right here, and it's actually not too bad. Sand this a little bit. Let me sand that a little bit because it's gotten a little rough over time. Let's see what this is. This the smoothie one? Yeah. I'm just gonna sand this interior here just a little bit. And all I'm doing is getting rid of what might be friction on here when it runs across. Like that. Then we need to move this back because the blade, because this has some width to it. So we need to figure out, okay, well, where's the blade going to impact our box? And I'm thinking maybe about an inch down from the top and an inch, our splines, maybe an inch from the top and the bottom. And that's really easy to do. I could just set up a ruler here for an inch and just get an approximate. So what I need to do is measure from the face of this thing right here to the inside of the blade. See where that's going to hit. So I'm going to just get that measured up. That's actually right, pretty good. And you can see this just travels across. Now, I need to figure out, and this is the most important thing to figure out, how deep of a cut I need to make in this box. So how deep does this need to be? Actually, I'm going to move this. I'm not going to, kind of doing it a little backwards right now. So I'm going to have to readjust that position in just a moment because I'm going to have to raise this blade up, and I need to make sure that when I put it on here, you'll see. Let me get my calipers here, and I want to check, because what I'm looking at is you don't want to cut all the way through your corner here. You want to cut about, I'm going to make a mark here. I'm going to go maybe about 1/8 of an inch from the inside corner. So I've got the corners here, and I don't want to cut all the way through. You don't want that blade passing into the interior of the box. I want it to be about 1/8 of an inch in from that corner. So that is the area that I need to measure. And I'm going to just use my calipers here and figure out where that is. And that is about 1/2 an inch, maybe just a hair over 1/2 an inch. So that would be the depth of cut that I want to make with my saw here. So I need to figure out if I've got that line right there. What happens is this this does not sit all the way down. It does not touch the tabletop. Okay, it actually sits about 3/8 of an inch above the tabletop. And so you don't, I'm going to run this side first. So when this is here, it is not, ooh, you know what I'm going to do? Before I do anything, I'm going to grab my little bit of super glue because I've got that chip out. That tiny chip that I just did. I'm going to put a drop of super glue in there. And actually, let me get a little accelerator. And we are going to just fix this little corner right here that I just messed up. But because it doesn't sit off the surface, I can't measure that 1/2 an inch up from the tabletop. It actually is going to be higher than 1/2 an inch because I have to account for the amount that it actually hangs above the table. So it gets a little confusing. It's not too hard. Once you get going, it's not hard. Let me just get a drop of glue in here. Okay, super glue, you're not being super right now. Oh, this is the one thing I hate about super glue. Seriously, what is the deal that you can't get these tops to be... I'm trying to get my little needle here and open this back up again. Hopefully that opened it up. Oh, that opened it. Okay. Way too much in there. Okay, I'm going to push this down. Actually going to wipe all this super glue off the side here first. And then I'm going to push these two areas down here. That needs to be down, that needs to be down. And then I'm going to spray some accelerator on here. And if you haven't used accelerator with super glue, it basically just kind of makes it almost an instant bond. It's really nice. Unless you have super glue on your fingers and you get accelerator on there, whew, you are in trouble. But anyway, that looks pretty good. Most of it's the accelerator on top now, so the glue's all dry. Okay, quick fix, and then I'll sand all that off. It'll look fine in the final sanding. But what I want to do is put this on here, and as I measure, I need to see how far up this is going to go. So the quick and easy way to do this actually is to get a piece of wood, a smaller piece of wood that is square, that I can use. This will work. And I need to make sure that the mark that I want is the same distance that I want to cut. So I'm going to just mark this in the corner. I'm going to put that mark for distance-wise right here. And then I'm going to run this at a 45 here. It doesn't always have to be this complicated, but I'm just trying to be as exact as I can be. There we go. So I'm just putting a line on here that represents where I want that cut to go on the spline. So basically just a little line right here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me, got this little camera right here. Might as well use it, right? There we go. All right, let's get a little close-up cam here. Okay, so now I can switch you over to this camera and you should be able to see. Let me switch camera angles here. This is camera 2. There we go. It's a little tilty, sorry about that. It's a little tilty, isn't it? Let's make it not so tilty, like that. Okay, that's a little better. Let me zoom in a little bit here. All right, that looks good. All right, so what I did was I took and drew a line on here. That's how deep I want my splines to go. I'm going to put this in the jig so you can see that it rests in the jig like that. Now I can slide this towards the blade, bring the blade up until I have it where it will be cutting that deep in my spline slot, which I think that's about right. Maybe just a hair taller. And that looks to be about right. Now, I mean, I know it's a round saw blade, right? But as you pass it across, so as I run across there, it will cut a nice straight groove in here. Now I can actually get a piece of wood and let me find a square piece of wood that I can test this with. And we can cut a spline in something like this thing right here. We can cut a spline in this. And let me see where that's going to impact it. Okay, that's kind of right in the middle, which is good. So we're just going to cut a spline in this and do a test really quick before we actually start cutting splines in my box. And that really, to me, is the key of things, is to be able to do tests and do test cuts and do a lot of test cuts if you need to, but get things so that they're really dialed in so that when you get down to your final project, and actually I could have used another piece of wood here, but that's okay. But when you want to get things really dialed in for your project, you don't have to go back and say, oh gosh, I screwed it up and start all over again. You kind of have things figured out before you go. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, got that in, got the power in. Is my power plugged in here? We are all powered up and we are ready to go. I need ears. Okay, let's make a test cut and see how we're doing. Now, the one thing I'm going to get here is just a little clamp, just to hold this down, just to keep it flush against the side here. And I'll be clamping the box in as well. So when I run it across, you don't want it slipping or moving while you're making a cut. That's bad news. All right, let's turn the saw on and make a kerf cut here, see what we get. And as you can see, not very exciting. There's not a lot to it, but that's what we end up with, is that little cut right there. And that's what we want. And then what we can do is measure that. So I can get my my calipers here, and because these have the little depth gauge on here, whoop, there we go. So there's a little depth gauge that's set to the equal amount as this that we measured. I can now measure that and see, and it's actually not quite as deep as we measured, but that's okay. It's pretty darn close. It's really close. You can see that. So we are really close to being the exact depth that we want to be. When we put the splines in here, let me grab my little piece of spline that I cut off. I think I left it over here. So when I get this little piece of spline, you'll see that I'm only going to be putting in, I only need like this much to go into there. It doesn't need to go very deep. Get this side right here. There we go. It needs to be flat against the bottom, but it's only going to cut a little triangle out of this piece. So you can see there's only a little triangular piece that will fit in that spline, and that's all I need. Actually, I might be able to get all the splines out of here. I might be able to get every single spline I need out of this one piece, which that would be very cool. All right, so we've done a test. We know what works, right? We need to set up, like I said, we need to set up for now. We've got the height. We need to set up for the distance from the wall here to the blade, which we said was going to be, what, 1 inch? I think was what we agreed on, was 1 inch. Looked good. So I'm just going to get my little setup tool here, get this lined up. And it's, you know, this is an aesthetic thing, so it does not have to be exactly 1 inch. I'm just getting it close to 1 inch. All right, now I need to get a clamp that will be long enough to hold this. I think this will work. This is probably going to take more setup than anything, is just getting this set in the right location and clamped up so that I get a really nice firm, because see how this kind of wants to wobble back and forth in here? Let me switch camera views for a second here. So you can see how this wants to kind of tip in here a little bit. I mean, it's set inside there, and I've got it set down in that as much as I can, but it's still, because it's long, it does not want to hold tight against here. And that's why you really need to make sure when you do this, especially with larger items like boxes, if you're doing a frame, like this thing was a frame, that's easy. If you're doing a picture frame or something, doing splines in a picture frame, it just sets in there and it's really super simple. But there's a lot of weight hanging off the edge of this. I have seen people who make splines where it actually is a carriage, where it actually sits in and it's supported on 2 sides. Mine is just a simple spline guide, so it's not quite as fancy as some of them. But anyway, I'm just making sure it's right where it needs to be. It is, there we go. Just like that. And let me just check the clearance under here. Yeah, okay. I think we're in good shape. I can go ahead and set up for a cut. And if you want to see a close-up, let's see if we can get a close-up of the cut being made here. And we'll watch this pass through. Turn this on. Oh, actually, let me put the lid back on my super glue. Very important to do that. All right, let's make a cut here. Fingers crossed. There with our cut. And Okay, so you can see the cut, and the cut, oh, there it is right here, does not pass through. So it does not pass through, even though it's right on the other side here. There it is. So it does not pass all the way through the corner, and that's exactly what we want. All right, so we're just going to pull this back. We cut this one already. We're going to rotate 90, lock this one into place, and you just repeat. So I'm just going to keep going now that we've seen how this works. I'm just going to keep going. You don't need to watch me set it up every single time. And let's just get these cuts made. Okay, so that was the cuts on the top of the box. So you can see that all of the splines have now been cut in the top. And now what we need to do is measure, I'm going to switch cameras here for you. I'm going to measure the base because we have this extra space right here, which is about 1/8. So I'm going to move this back about 1/8 of an inch so that we do get about 1 inch here. If I did it now, it would come up a little less than 1 inch. And I want these to be equal and distant. And then I have to figure out where I want this decorative band, which I think I'm going to put up on this side up here. And then that we will be running that through the saw like this. But anyway, that's a step ahead. Let's bring this back to the saw blade. I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch to my depth here. Is that 1/8? Yep, I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to keep that spline cut 1 inch from the bottom, not from the bottom of the bottom, but from the edge right here, 1 inch up. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and just knock this over 1/8 of an inch, lock it down. And now we can set to the bottom. This is where I really need to have that clamp in there, make sure these are seated, because there is that beveled raised bottom. And we want to make sure that this is really seated firmly against here, because you can see there's a little gap right there. And so I need to have that clamp kind of down on the side right here, so I'm getting nice pressure on there like that. I want it to be nice and flat when it runs through. Okay, ears back on, and we're just going to motor through these cuts just like we did the last ones. All right, now we've got all of our splines cut, and I will say that, you know, cutting on table saws and doing things like this is always the best way is to use a jig. Jigs just make your work safer. If I tried to do this in any other way, honestly, I don't know of another safe way that I could do it. This just makes life safer. And so whenever you can make a jig to do something on a table saw, it's probably going to make it easier and it's going to make it safer. And now I've got these great cuts right here. And yeah, I think, you know, it's going to serve our purpose as well. Let me get on here and you can see that there's all of my cuts right there. So as I go through, we can add the splines into here, and the splines will be cut out over at the bandsaw when I get ready to cut those. One thing I'm thinking of doing, I can do one of two things. I can cut the splines now, or I can cut the band that's going to go through here and make that decorative cut. And I'm thinking that I might want to do that now, is to make that decorative cut in all four sides here and just do it like this and then pass it. So what I need to do is set the depth of this blade to basically, I'm going to have to do another test cut. So let me grab this really quick, just so we can run through this again. So this right here is the test cut that I made, and you can see I made this little dado in here, and that was made by passing it across the blade and then moving over just a tiny bit and crossing it again and then another one until I got just the right fit. Now, the depth is really super important because I don't want this to be, if I go too deep, then this is going to sit down below the edge. I'd rather have this sitting just slightly above the surface so that when I sand it, I can sand it flush. So that's my whole thing, is I don't want this, and you can see that's pretty close to flush. It's just a hair over, but when I sand it, this will be perfectly flush, and that's kind of my plan. But doing stuff like this kind of makes me nervous because I've already got this 3/4 done. It's like, okay, don't mess this up, Jeff. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to measure the width of this piece of wood right here, and it's basically a 1/2 inch. It's 0.508 inches, and I'm going to lock this down. And not because I'm going to do any measurements with that, but I'm just going to check as I move forward. Now this needs to come down a lot. This saw blade needs to come way down, because if you look at my piece, and I'll use my piece as a guide here, I need those teeth. Can't really see. I don't even know if you can see that. I need those teeth to be, well, you can see them. They're still sticking up just a hair over. Let me grab this little thing right here. So you can see as I run this next to that tooth, see how that tooth kind of moves there? Let me get you in here. There you go. So you can see that even with this held down flat and flush, this tooth is still higher. And I need that tooth to not be that high. So I'm cutting a very shallow groove in this thing, very shallow indeed. That might be better. And the way I'm going to check this is to kind of move the teeth until I can see just, and I'm just, so you can see there's the teeth right there. And I'm just sliding these teeth to see if they top out or come near. And I might have to go just a hair taller. But I mean, it is so, because the other thing is, it's like, okay, well, how, you know, is the wood, are you pressing down on the wood all the way when you're running it through there? You know, the depth can vary because it's very shallow. But anyway, let's start with that and see if I'm going to run it right through here and do a test, because I need to get that thickness just right. So I'm going to run a quick test on here. All right, now the easiest way for me to test this is to look at the one I did on the other side and then set up my little market gauge here. I'm going to set this up so that it will bottom out on that cut. And then it provides me just that tiny bit of measurement that I can check on the other side here. And it looks like I'm actually just a hair too deep, which is not what I wanted. I mean, it's really close, super close. But like I said, I'd rather go more shallow. I'm going to put this to the edge here so I can actually see it going up and down. I want it to be just, I think that's perfect right there. All right, I'm going to try to cut another groove in here that is about the same as this one and check that depth, because that to me is the most important thing right now to get correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a pass and I'm going to move it over, cut another pass, move it over. Let me get my my gripper here. Set that up on here, just so I don't have to use my hand on top of the wood. Even though it's pretty safe pass because I'm not cutting through the wood, I'm just cutting a little groove in there. I'd still just, you know what, anytime I don't have to be near the blade, I'm all for that. All right, let's make a slot, shall we? A little dado. Yep, that'll work. Now we got a little bit wider. We're getting close. Close. Out to. Okay. All right, and this one doesn't need to be exact because I just am more caring about the depth all the way across. And I don't know if you can see, it's just a tiny bit above there, which is fine because like I said, when I clamp this down and then I will go back and I can actually either use the plane to take these down flat or I can use, I just sand them down flat. But that is kind of what I was looking for. Now this is a little wide. I didn't get exact on my measurement, so you can see it moves in there just a little bit. It's not quite where it needs to be. It's a little wider, but that's okay because that I will get correct when we do it on the box now. I've got the depth right. Although, hang on, I'm going to come just a tiny bit higher. All right, I'm going to get this out of the way for the moment, but I have to use this to measure. Now I need to set up exactly where I want this to go on my box. I'm going to come through like this. I'm going to push it through. So where do I want this to cut? That's the big question here, is where do I want this to cut? Let me go back to this camera angle here. So I want this to cut. Obviously I can see where my spline is. I'm thinking 2 inches down, but then I need to keep moving it over. So I'm going to start at 2 inches. Right there. And then I will just keep nudging the fence over until I get the thickness right. So what I'll do is I'll make I will make passes on all 4 sides. And then, yeah. All right, well, let's do this because you know what? There's no turning back now. There's the first notch. Okay, so we've got basically a ring that goes all the way around. And all I need to do is do it. Okay, so now we're getting really close to that final, those final cuts. And so I really want to make sure that when I do my measurement now, that I'm getting it right where it needs to be. So I'm going to actually take this and make a mark on here so I can just visualize against that saw blade exactly where, I say I'm going to do that if I had my pencil here, exactly where it needs to go when it touches there. I'm going to go not all the way to that, but I need to get just to that point where it's close. So this will probably be 2 more cuts in here. So let me make this cut and then I'll stop it and do another cut just to try to really finesse that in there. All right. On my mark here that I made, where did I make my mark? I made a mark on here. Where'd it go? Okay, is that it? Oh, that's it right there. I'm gonna make another mark on here. Make another mark. That one got pushed out of the way a little bit. Yeah, I'm really close now. Really stinking close. Just need to be in the inside of that pencil mark there. Now, the other thing is that this stuff, you know, when I put glue in there and stuff, and wood will swell just a little bit. So there is that. Okay. And I'd rather be just a hair skinny, because if I'm a hair skinny, I can cut the piece and then I can actually just sand on the edge of this just to get that to fit just right. You know, if it's too wide, I can't. If it's too skinny, I can make it happen. All right, one more cut here. Let's see what we can do. All right, moment of truth here. Oh man, that's pretty good. It's just, I mean, there's a little bit of wiggle room, but it's pretty darn close. So I'm happy with that. It sticks up just a hair, which is okay. We plan for that too. Oop, I'm knocking everything over here. But yeah, that's pretty good right there. Pretty good. Not bad. Now, there's one thing I wonder if I could. Let me go over here. Remember before I mentioned about my my Veritas blade here. I don't know if this is wider than that. Oh, it's not. So what I can do is this thing actually, let me see if I can show you, so we can get close in here and show you. So it's because I'm making multiple passes, this is not a really clean surface in here. And there are some variances in the depth and such just because of the blade. So I don't know if you can see any of those in there or not. But because I have this, which is a router blade, I can lower this down and I can clean out this cut right here. Get it just a hair lower. And I should be able to clean out any of the rough spots that are not, yeah, so see how that kind of plows through? And all it's going to do is clean up any of the rougher pieces in there that did not get cut cleanly from the blade. Oh, that's so nice. Let me see if I can, really wish I could show you the difference there. So right here, cleaned up, but right here, still kind of rough. And you can see some pieces there that are chipped up. So by running this blade through here, I am able to just clean up these surfaces and get this exactly the way it needs to be. Like that. That's what this tool does. It's made for these little areas that you just need to get cleaned up. And this is just, oh, this is perfect. All right. Now, if I take this and stick it in here now, oh, nice and clean. It's flat. It's giving me a great glue surface. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and just run this across the other sides here. And yeah, we can kind of make this happen here. We'll change cameras here. Go to this view. You can see that I'm just running this inside that groove there. Now some of them actually have a little bit more to be chiseling out here. It's kind of a deeper area. I'm going to go the other direction on this one. Put it against the wall here too. Just kind of chisel this stuff out here. And I want to make sure that I'm not going too deep either. It should be locked in here. So the depth is locked, which is fine here. But as that saw blade would come through, you know, there's variances in the wood that may not have allowed it to sit exactly flat and straight. So there we go. That is awesome. You can see all these little pieces of wood that I'm chipping out of here. And basically what I'm doing is I'm making this exactly flat and flush inside there, getting rid of any of those marks that were left by the blade. And it's going to get it just to the right level. Now, get it to hold really still here is another story, but come on. You can pull this, you can push it. And this is a little awkward to work with too, so I don't want to dig too deep here. I wonder why that's, okay. Let me make sure that I am seeing exactly where I'm going to lower this, or put this right on the edge where it wants to be, right there. Really get this locked in. There we go, just a little bit off the edge here. But it references off of this flat side, and this is really, really flat right here. So it's referencing off of these edges as it's riding through here and giving me nice clean edges and a nice clean flat bottom. And that will allow this decorative strip to sit really nice and flat. And I'm still keeping a tiny bit of a lip here. It's a little bit proud of the surface. So I'm not taking off a lot. You can see I've got these little chips though that are coming out here. So I'm just taking off a little bit. And like I said, a lot of this has to do with the fact that the saw blade, you know, it has teeth that cut on an angle like this way, and a flat tooth. So it does leave these little ridges in here, and they do not always provide a super flat surface, but that's where this thing comes in, and just, I can just plow through this stuff. And let me just get little bits and pieces here as I go. There we go. Just trying to get little bits here, so I don't have to take big cuts, and I can come the other direction on it. Come on. Now I'm also going across grain, which is, you know, it wants to dig in going across grain, so you have to be careful with that a little bit. I don't want to go too much on here. There we go. Nice and clean. Get the rest of this side. Okay. A little bit more over here. Try to come in from the edge. There we go, like that. Oh, careful, don't chip it. Don't chip it. Don't want to chip. There we go. Super clean there. Let's check that. Perfect. And then I think yep, just one more side to go here, but oh, that looks so nice. So now you get to see the plane in action, which is kind of cool. I don't use this a ton, but for stuff like this, and you can see it's just really, it's just made for it. Now I probably need to, probably can go a lighter cut on here, but it just, because I'm going across the grain, it wants to dig in certain areas here. And I don't want to chip out. Come on, just do little bits, just little bits. Just to wiggle it. There's a little bit of a chip out right there, which is okay because the piece we're putting in here will cover any of that. Just trying to get this. There we go. This one did not cut as deep over here, so I'm just going to take little tiny chunks here, because it did not, for whatever reason, and it could be just the way that the base was riding against, the box was riding against the table here, that you know, it couldn't quite get a deep cut on some of these. Wow. But I'm going to just take my time here and work this, because you know what I'm going to do? Take these headphones off. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm sitting here with headphones on. I don't need them. But I am just going to work this slowly back and forth, just kind of wiggle these just to get these pieces cut here. If this was clamped in, it would probably be a little easier because the table does, or it is moving a little bit on the table here. I'm having to cut just little bits off of here because this one is a little deeper than the other one. There we go. Now we're getting there. Come on. I'm just going to keep switching it around though, so you can attack it from different sides. Get rid of these little pieces on here. Probably could stand to be sharpened just a little bit. Sure. Yeah, so this side definitely didn't get cut as deep as the other. And I think it was maybe just because of some inconsistencies in the wood when it was riding on the table. Wow. Come on. Should not be that tight in there. I'm just going to keep doing this back and forth until I can get it all cleaned out. There we go. There we go. Now we got it cleaning. Now we're getting it cleaned out. So most of this side is done now. I say that and I come around here and it's like, oh, not quite. There we go. Sometimes just brute force. It probably needs to be, make sure I'm not going, nope, still good. Sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm taking too much wood out, but nope, it's still good. It just, you just need to plow through. Okay. Check it from this side. Okay. It is really right here. There's a notch that's being a pain. I'm not sure why I can't get through this one piece right here. Good grief. It's like a big, thick chunk of wood right here that just did not want to give. The rest of it, there we go. See now it's clean. Now it's clean. It was just, I think one piece where it was just really super hard wood, it just did not want to give up the ghost. And right here in the edge too, it's just kind of the same way, where it's just some harder wood right here. But, we're going to just, oh man, same deal. Probably wouldn't hurt to sharpen my chisel a little bit either at this point in time. It's a little late, but all the other ones you saw were much lighter cuts. This one, for whatever reason, did not get cut as deeply. So we're just going to work on these last little bits here to get this smoothed out. Wow, this piece right here, big chunk of wood. But the bottom is smooth here, and that's the key, is you want the bottom to be smooth. There we go. There we go. Okay. That's what we wanted. Nice gentle cut across the top there. Now it's just removing the edge stuff. Getting these really cleaned out. All righty. I think that should be it. I'm going to just take a little piece of sandpaper and run it right through there. Just get that fuzz off of there. You know, little fuzzy edges. Let's check this. Yep, perfect. So I'm not sure why that one did what it did or didn't do, but what we can do is, my thought is I'm going to run this up to the very edge on one of these. Go over here. So I'm going to run this right to this edge like this, and that way I can, and then I'll cut it off flush, and then I can just keep fitting pieces into it as I go around the sides. Now, one thing I could actually do on this is I could super glue this. I could do that. Should I super glue this? That's interesting. So I could take this and get my flush trim saw and trim this exactly where it needs to go. So right here, I would trim this edge off right here. So right here on this edge, trim that off. I might do that. Tell you what, let's do this. Let's get a clamp here. Let's just clamp this, just like that. Let me get my flush trim saw. Flush trim, flush cut, whatever you want to call it. It's this little saw right here. It's very, very bendy, so you can get it right up next to what you're cutting. And I'm just going to take gentle cuts on here and try to keep this as flush as I can. I don't know if there's an easy way. Probably can't see it from there, so I'm going to switch you back. There we go. So I'm going to do it like this. And just keep this right on the edge of this piece. Take really light cuts. And then hold here. There we go. Okay, so what I've got is a nice flush trim right there. And then the next piece I put in, I would slide that. Let me get, just make sure I get these edges. So the next piece I do, I will slide it up to this piece, and then I'll cut that one flush here. I think that would work. So my question is, should I super glue these? And I think I will. I think I can do some super glue. And what I need to do, really, it's not that hard, is apply super glue to the interior surface here. Spray this with the Instant Bond accelerator, so that when I put it in here, as soon as it hits that Instant Bond, as soon as I press this in, it's done. It's like bonded right there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make sure that I can get these edges super clean. I'm going to get a really nice piece of sandpaper, because I want a really nice sharp edge there. So let me find, this will work. This is it's a 220, that should be good. I'm just going to fold it in half and get a really nice, so I'm getting this piece of paper here, I'm just folding it in half. I'm getting a really nice edge, and I'm going to run that, actually I might use this to push it and run that right along this edge here, just to get any fuzz off of there. Do it on the other side as well. Just pushing this paper down in there. There we go. And that should give me a nice clean edge. Let me do this side just one more time here. I don't think I got it. There we go. So I actually might do that all the way around before I start gluing this thing, is just to get those edges really cleaned up of any fuzz that's in them. And by pushing this little, get that paper all the way down in there. Let me do it on the other side here. Yeah, so this is just going to give me, it shouldn't be changing the depth of this or anything. It's just getting that crisp edge without any fuzz from the plane left over. I think that's it. I think that was all of them. Looked like that was all of them. All right, and this piece should fit right here. That is a really nice fit. It's right on the edge. And any overlap is going to get sanded down anyway. But once I get these edges in, then I can actually go through and do the splines. So let's go ahead and, I mean, super glue is a very viable, it's not wood glue, super glue is a very viable glue for woodworking, depending on what you're doing here. So I'm gonna lay this in pretty thick here. I'm gonna spray this down, and then you have to do this right, because once you get this in there, it's gonna be kind of like that instant fit. So you need to make sure you're getting exactly where it wants to go. Hold it down in there. And you don't have to do it for long. I'm going to do, a few seconds here. But this will pretty much be instantly bonded to the bottom of that box. And then it'll all get sanded and look really pretty. But it's stuck. It's not coming up out of there. And it's good to go. All right. So we will flip this over. And we will do the next piece in here. And we'll do it the exact same way. I'm just going to measure it right here. Find a nice edge here, right here, like this side out. We're going to slide this in. We're going to get it right. Oh, that's going to look really nice butted up against there. And we're going to take this and do that same flush cut right on here, so that this is, let me get this clamped down, because I think it works better just so it doesn't slide at all. Sorry, that's squeaky. But anyway, so this won't move now, and I can concentrate on holding it and getting this really super flush and square. And the nice thing about a flush trim saw is that the teeth, if you hold it flush against your work surface, the teeth are not angled out like a regular saw. Regular saw has the teeth kind of angled out, and the problem with that is that it'll scratch the surface. So this flush saw, even though it's a little tiny bit there, it should not mar your surface, or if it does, it's very minor. I'm just going to do this. Now that piece that we just cut, we're going to do the exact same thing for that. So we will, that's my good surface. Which one do I want for my good surface? That look good? I think I like it the other way. That's my surface. So this is going to be my spray surface. This will be my super glue surface right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. I'm just going to, once again, I'm just kind of flooding that surface. I'm going to quickly spray this. And we're going to rest it inside. It's nice because I have a piece to butt it up against now. And there we go. Now we're going to hold this in here and let it just set up with that super glue. I'm sorry, CA glue. We call it CA glue is what we call it. It's CA glue. Cyanoacrylate. Super glue. But that, bet you that's tight already, yep. So if you look now, you can see kind of what we're going for. That little decorative band around the top there, kind of looks nice, right? I'm gonna probably oil this thing. I'll do like a Danish oil finish on here, and that'll just make everything pop and look really pretty. So, all right, this one is gonna go right there. Now that's not, hang on, is that better? Trying to get the best side here. Ooh, that piece didn't get cut. So let's do this end. It's not bad. Do that. All right, let's cut this one off. The last one's gonna be the hardest one because it's gonna be inside of two areas. Because it has to fit in between these two areas that are gonna be sticking out here. So it'll be a little harder to do, but shouldn't be crazy difficult. Because what I can do is trim it down. I will trim it down as close as I can, and then I can like sand it to get it just that perfect fit in there. All right, this one is gonna go, and I'll turn it this way. Same thing here, just load this up with super glue. Get it all across here, because we want it to be joined all across here. Spray this one. Place it in flush against here. And there it goes. All right. And then we will have one last piece to cut. And like I said, this one's going to be the most challenging because it has to exactly fit into this little raised area because of the way I fed this in here. And that's super glue. Gotta love it. All right, one more piece. I get it a little bit harder. I can't cut this one the way I cut the others because it won't fit if I do. So I'm gonna have to actually mark this one and then cut it. If I can see that mark right there. Make sure that's right. That's correct. And then I'm going to, now how I'm going to cut this is a good question. I need to get it so that it's, so I could put it like this and use the box. I could actually use the box. I can use the edge of the box as my guide for the saw, as long as I have this exactly where it needs to go. Ooh, that might work. Okay, let me mark that up there. Now, luckily, I actually have a lot left over here. So if I need to do this again, I can certainly do that. I'm going to try to clamp this down like that. Make sure it's flush with the edge of the box here so I get a nice straight cut. My cut mark is right on the edge of the box, so I'm going to clamp this down really tight, and I might put another one on here just to make sure that this thing doesn't move. Can I do that? No, I can't. Actually, I could if I move this over a little bit. I think I'm going to. Okay, hang on. Let's get this flush once again. Make sure that's in the exact right spot. And I'm going to do one more right here, because I really don't want this to move at all. Flush. All right, so my box is going to be my cutting guide. And let's see what we get here. Let's finish this off. Try to get it as clean as I can so that it fits neatly. Okay, go off the clamps. And let's see if I get a little bit of a notch there. I need to flatten that out. See? Oh, I was just a hair. Dang it. Oh, it's a hair short. So we got to do this again. We got to do it one more time. I got to go a little bit longer. And you know what I'm going to do is use this piece, because let me see how much longer I need to go here. I mean, I'm talking like maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I don't know how I did that, but so I'm going to mark that right here. I'm going to push that over just a little bit. And then I'm going to clamp this down. And I'm going to clamp this one down. And I'm going to use this piece as my cutting guide. I can do a couple more if I need to. All right, so there's my cutting guide. It's not going to move. It's about a 1/16 over. So now what I can do is get a big piece of wood here or something, a couple pieces of wood, just as a platform. Get this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to use this as a cutting platform. Maybe that's good right there. I don't know. Actually, it needs to be a little taller than that. A little taller, scrap wood to the rescue. One more piece of scrap right here. One more piece of scrap, I think will do it. Okay. And let's get the saw and let's cut this. Now, like I said, the thing is, if it's just a hair long, it's no big deal because I can finesse that with a little sandpaper. But short leaves a gap, and that's what I don't want as a gap. The other thing about like this saw is it's just like all Japanese saws is it's a pull saw. So you get more leverage with a pull saw. But sometimes they want to bind up, and I'm not sure. I think I've got this here. Oh, there we go. I had it. It's a little dirty on this edge here. Let me see if I can get this edge to clean up. There we go. All right. This one is now longer than the one before it. And it will now hopefully sit right inside. Oh, nice. I mean, it is like a whisker too long, which is perfect. Perfect, because I can now just drag it across some sandpaper and really get that perfect fit, which is what we're going to do right now. Let me get these clamps out of the way real quick. They have done their job. They've done it well. What time is it here? 12? It's almost 1 o'clock. I haven't even cut splines yet. Now, there's a little chip out on this side, so I will definitely not use that side. I will use this side as my finished side. And just a tiny bit long, but that's okay. I'm going to use this flat piece of wood right here, or wood, sandpaper, and I'm just going to gently bring this down until it wants to fit inside here. So just it may take me a minute or two to get this, but I do not want to rush at this point. I want this to, and I am just so close. I really just want this to fit perfectly in here. And there's a difference between good inlay and bad inlay. I don't want this to be the bad inlay reference. And that, my friends, is perfect right there. That is it. Okay, so that's perfect. I have to be able to get it out of here though, to put the glue in there. Woo, that was close. All right, we're gonna glue this one up, and I gotta spray this one and make sure the surface is clean. All right, here we go. Lots of glue in here. And we are gonna spray this down, set it into this one, into that one, and away we go. I'm just going to use this piece of wood right here to hold it nice and flat. That's our inlay. That's cool. Inlay's done. That worked out really well. It looks really nice. And like I said, once this gets sanded down and then gets some stain on it, yeah, it'll look really decent. So I'm happy about that. All right, that one's in place. So there we go. So now you can see our nice little decorative inlay made from walnut. And I think walnut and cherry go together really nicely. And it is a little bit higher in places. But like I said, once I start sanding, this will really just blend in so nicely. Now, the other thing we need to do now is we need to start cutting splines. So I've got my little piece of wood here. And the splines shouldn't take long. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this inside here, and I'm going to get my pencil, and I'm going to draw little triangles in here. So there's a little triangle right here, and I'll switch over. Let me switch over cameras here so you can maybe see this a little better. Okay, so you see that little triangle I drew there? Maybe not. It's kind of hard to see. Anyway, I drew a little triangle right here. I just traced this. I will cut outside that line. And then what I need to do is switch this around. I'll move it over a little bit. And I'm going to cut a triangle. I'm going to fit this flush inside. And I'm going to draw another triangle right here. It's a little wide, or a little tight, isn't it? There we go. So I'm just tracing this spline area right here. And that will hopefully allow me to get enough splines out of here. And I'm just going to keep doing this around. I will move over to allow for kerf of the bandsaw. These are going to be really tiny pieces too. So I have to allow for a little room here. So that's 3 and 4 right here. All right, I actually have 4, I don't know if you can see them, but there are 4 triangles drawn in here. So that gives me, I mean, look, I've got tons of room. It only took up 3 inches. So let me go over to the saw over here, and let's get you all in a new position over here. So whoa, you get to go for a ride. There we go. Get to go for a little ride. We're going to come over here to. Actually, let me just. Oh, this thing is a pain in the rear to use, but it's all I got right now. So let me hang on a second. I apologize. Wow, that was a rough ride. Keeps wanting to go forward. There we go. Lock it in. Zoom it in. All right, we're going to be right over here at the bandsaw. I need to move this little scrap wood out of the way. And I'm going to come over here and try not to cut my fingers off. I do not need this guide. But all I'm going to do is cut these so that there's a little extra room here. That one I might have messed up a little bit. That's all right. We'll get this. All right. I guess I'm going to hook up the saw too. Or not the saw, but the air. Just to kind of keep the mess down. I did sweep and vacuum the shop a little bit today, so let's try to minimize that a little bit. There we go. Okay. Turn this on. One, two. All right. I just did these four, the top ones, just to kind of do a test on there. Very tight, but they will be, yep, sit nicely right inside. And like I said, once these get glue on them, they will be tighter in the pocket. Oh, a little word about when I was making those splines. If you saw when I did those splines, I pushed this through once and then I lifted it out. I didn't push it through and bring it back, because problem is when you push through and then draw back it through the saw, you have the chance of actually widening that kerf because it might shift ever so slightly. So you always just want to push through and be done. You don't want to draw it back through the saw again, because that might, like I said, it might change the dimension of that kerf. So push through, take your piece off, slide your jig back, line up the next one and push through. Don't push through and back, because that will definitely mess things up. All right, these are good. I'm going to set these aside right here. They're just large enough. And like I said, I didn't know if I was going to have enough wood here, but apparently I have more than enough. So I'm going to go ahead and draw these bottom ones here and just do the same thing where I'm just tracing my triangle on here. And that allows me to be able to see where I need to make these cuts and give myself room to pass, you know, because it's a skinny blade on that bandsaw, but it still has a curve to it. So let me just draw this one. And I need to have room to pass that saw between the different triangles here. So I just give myself a little bit of room here. And these are going to work out really well. So that's the last thing we're going to do is once I get these cut out, we will get a little bit of glue. We'll paint some glue onto these things. And then we will insert them into the slots here. And then we just let it set up to dry. Once that's done, it's all about finishing. It's sanding and you know, smoothing off all of these edges, because there will be some stuff sticking out. That's 4 of them there, right? Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there'll be a little bit of edge sticking out from here, but for the most part, we'll be able to sand that pretty smooth. Like if I went to a 120 or even an 80 to start with, just to get the rough edges, and then down to a 120, 150, you know, the regular deal when we sand. All right, let me cut these out. All right, now we have all of our splines in place. We do not need the super glue anymore, so let me put the cap back on, and I'm just going to set it aside, and then I will switch camera angles for you all, and we will check out this very last thing we're going to do here. So come back over to here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to switch. Give me just a minute. I'm going to switch this camera angle one more time for you all. Just kind of point it down here, just so you can see what I'm doing. Let me see if I can go wide with this one. There we go. All right. There we go. That's good. I'm going to switch you back to a little bit closer view just so you can see what I'm doing here. So you can see all of our spline notches here. There's our really nice walnut inlay right there. I need a little bit of glue. I'm going to get a glue brush here because that will make life a little easier. If I use a little silicone brush, I can get a little bit of glue kind of pushed inside of these things. Hang on a second, let me clean this brush off here. Just gonna clean anything off of this brush right here. Because I'm gonna push a little bit of glue down into the slot as well. So yeah, I will put, actually watch this. Let me lower this blade all the way down. And I'm gonna slide this tabletop over so it gives me a little bit of a, there we go. Got a little bit of rest to work with now so I can have these sitting upright. It works a little bit nicer when you're trying to put just a little bit of glue in these things. So I'm going to grab a little bit of glue from here and a little bit of glue in here. And then I've got my little brush, so I'm just going to spread that around inside the slot a little bit, like this. And then I will kind of push out what I can, and we're going to put some of this glue onto here. Now, I'm going to get glue on both sides. I know I told you, oh, you only have to glue one side. I'm just going to get these loaded up because it helps the wood swell a little bit. And you just want them to sit down inside and glue and be good. So there we go. Let me grab one of these, get some glue on this. And I'm going to need another drop of glue on this one. Like this is a little bit, I mean, you can see I'm just covering these things in glue. And the biggest thing is you just want them to seat all the way down. So you push them all the way down in until they seat firmly, and you want them to be able to stick out. They need to be proud on each side. And if you get a little glue on there, don't worry about it. Just wipe it off because we're going to sand it, right? So anything we get on the outside, we'll be sanding, and that won't be an issue. It's an issue if I trip and kill myself in my own shop, but all right. So that one's done. Let me just wipe a little of this excess off here. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that side is done. You don't want any drips for the most part. I'm gonna flip this way. It's gonna get a little, I'm gonna have to stand these up. I just want to get these couple done. And then I'm gonna have to stand it upright because if I put any pressure on these, they'll slide. But for these first couple, that's fine. So a little glue in the slot. I'll have to hold the others up in the air and do them by hand. But we're just working that glue around inside the slot here a little bit, just to kind of, like I said, cover as much of the areas as we can. All the area that's actually inside the slot, for the most part, all the areas that are touching this area right here is all end grain. So we want to make sure that we've got enough glue that that end grain is going to soak up the glue and have enough to hold our spline, because that's the thing. The spline is going to add strength to this joint. So that's the plan. That's the plan. And like I said, make sure that they get seated firmly in the joint and that you have a little bit of sticking out on each side. That's the key. You want them to have a little bit sticking out. Ooh, that's a lot of glue right there, Jeff. We're gonna scrape some of that off there and put some on this side. This. Sorry, don't mean to be out of frame here so much. When you're tall, you know, you forget. All right, I'll put this one down in the corner and seat it just like that. All right, all these other ones I'm going to have to hold up in the or do them flat, just because I can't rest them like this. It's kind of nice I could do these first couple like that though. That was kind of nice. But if I set these down now, they'll get messed up. So see what I mean about the drips here? You want to make sure that you wipe up any drips coming off here. It just makes your life easier in the after. But you can sort of see what it's going to look like with the splines in there now, right? So that's kind of cool looking. So we've got 2 splines in. We still have, widen out a little bit here. We've got 2 more sets to go. So I'm going to put the glue in. A little glue into each of these slots. I'm going to spread it. And then I'll grab some. And I'm going to set this thing down. That's a lot of glue, Jeff. A lot of glue. Wipe some of that off here. Once again, a lot of glue. But you want to make sure you get it all the way to the edge, too. You don't want to leave any gaps or anything. If I do have gaps, what I can do is come back and make some like walnut wood filler, which would just be sand a piece of walnut, get some walnut dust from sanding, and mix that with a tiny bit of glue. And that usually is enough. You can kind of spread it into any gaps or openings, and it'll fill them in and look nice. And because it's mostly comprised of sawdust, you can stain it and do other things with it as well. So it's kind of how I fix those kind of issues. Now push this all the way in till it makes contact. You want it to make contact. That's important. If you leave a gap in there, then you're kind of hosed. There's no way to fix it after the fact. So you need to make sure that you're pushing these all the way flush against that flat side of the slot we made there. Need one more here. And then these, like I said, will all get trimmed off, probably sanded off, because these are not very long. Sometimes I'll do longer ones, but these are not very long at all. So these will get sanded off most likely at the end. Slide this one in. It's right there. Perfect. All right, almost done. Just kind of get this glue cleaned up as I go, because I don't want it dripping into other areas here. But almost done there. And then, yep, one more side here. So the same thing. We'll glue in the slot right here. Maybe, if I can get that to go in there. We'll glue in the slot. And then I'll use this to push it in. Spread it around. Glue off there. There we go. Sorry. Once again, out of the frame, but I have to hold this up. Otherwise it will, I don't want to damage the sides of these any. Okay, so now I can spread the last bit of glue from here onto these last 2 triangles. More here. Okay. Insert this one. Perfect. A little bit of squeeze out. That's okay. It's nice. And last one right here. And like I said, you don't have to clamp these. They will set up just fine inside the slots here. So do not need it. Really, do I need just a little bit more glue? Come on, give me a little glue here. There we go. All right, last one. Slide this in. And there we go. That's seated really nicely. Yeah, wipe up the squeeze out. Make sure that you're pushed all the way into the corners, that you're flat against the back of that cut, and that you have a little bit sticking out on each side so that you can trim it nice and flush. And that, ladies and gents, is how that looks. Almost done. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna go back over to the big table here. Just carry this over. We can have a little wrap up here. Kind of fun. Got to use a lot of tools today. I always like it when I can mix things up. What we use? We use the table saw. We use the band saw. I use my my very awesome router plane. So yeah, got to use a little bit of a variety of stuff there. Some different techniques. We used a jig. Look online if you're thinking of doing something like this. To look online for spline jigs. There are a lot of tutorials out there for creating from very simple spline jigs to much more complicated spline jigs, or more elaborate spline jigs. They can do more work. My spline jig does exactly what I needed to do. Like I said, mostly for frames and things like that, but it works for boxes too. I can make a box spline. Actually, let me show you, like here, this box is not finished, but it's it was like, it's not the greatest. But like, okay, so here is a walnut box, right? But this has maple splines in it. And you can see really when you use that contrasting color to make splines, it just does a really nice job. The other thing that you can do, which this is something I do, let me show you on this camera right here. So one thing that I will do sometimes is I will alter the length of the spline. So this spline up top is shorter than the one at the bottom. So all of the bottom splines are longer than the top splines. So if you're going to have, especially if you're going to have like an odd number of splines or whatever, change the length of the spline cut. Make it deeper on one, shallower on another, and it just adds a nice decorative kind of thing. But you can see you really want to use, at least for the most part, I think it's really nice to use a contrasting color when you're doing splines. I just think it looks nice. That's just my opinion. You might have a different opinion, but that's mine. So this looks really good. I'm very happy with the way this is turning out. I like my little decorative inlay band. I think that worked nicely. And when this is all, and it's kind of rough right now because obviously, you know, it's got glue and it needs to be sanded and it's not pretty. But what I need to do on this, well, I'm going to sand down and make these, once this is all dry, I will make these flush, right? Sand them all down, sand the entire thing down, which is also going to get this decorative band flush with the sides here. I might do a little bit of a round over on this top right here, just to make it into the edge here. I'm also, you know, going to smooth out these corners. These are very sharp corners from these miter joints. So it is very sharp. So I will smooth these down a little bit, and that'll also, I don't think I'm going to round them, but I will smooth them down. I might round it. I might do a little 1/8 inch round over on all the corners just to make it really nice. But that's kind of what I'm going to look at to finish it, is just do some, I need to get all these flush, then maybe do the round overs, get all these edges nice and touchable, not sharp. And then, yeah, at that point in time, I can put a finish on there. I might do a Danish oil, just because I like the way the Danish oil really, like I would do a cherry Danish oil and it'll just make this like pop. It'll look so good. The wood will look amazing because this is some really nice not figure, but really nice grain. I chose some really nice cathedral flat sawn pieces of cherry for this. And I think it's going to look really nice with a cherry Danish oil on here. And it'll also make that, that walnut really pop. It darkens up the walnut. And walnut just looks really great with oil on it. And then I might let it dry and then do a salad bowl finish on top of it, just to kind of give it a little bit of a waterproofing, because it is a kitchen utensil holder. So, but yeah, not displeased. The bottom came out really nice the way I wanted it to. These edges are a little up, but I couldn't really do anything about that. They're not perfectly matched, but that's okay, because this is flat and it just needs to sit on there. So there we go. All right, well, I think, what time is it? 1:30, so about my normal time here, about 2.5 hours. I didn't look to see, but I don't have any comments on there. Never do. There's no one watching this but me, and maybe you later. That'd be awesome. If you are watching, if you would do me a favor and just hit the subscribe or the follow or the like or the whatever. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe. That would be super great. I do this, like I said, 3 times a week. I also have some tutorial stuff. And as I get into some other things where I think they're more tutorial based, I might make some more tutorial videos on that. So if you could hit the little bell notification, it'll let you know when I come on. That's awesome. If you're on Facebook, just do me a favor, follow my Facebook page. You know, throw me a comment if you want to. That would be great. If you're on Twitch, you can follow me on Twitch. You don't have to subscribe because, you know, that costs money. But you can follow me and you can get notifications as to when I come on. And like I said, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. All right, I think we're good to go. You all have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday. Go enjoy it. Get some vitamin D. Get outside. See, right here, it says, get lost in the outdoors. That's what we need to do. We all need to be getting lost in the outdoors just a little bit more. Not too lost, just a little bit. I'm going to try to ride my bike today. 65 degrees, maybe. If it's not windy, I might take the bike out for a ride today. That would be nice. Otherwise, I'm going to be just working on some stuff in the shop this weekend. I've got some yard work to do. I'm not going to do a lot this weekend because, you know, it's spring and things are growing, so I have to cut them back. But anyway, have a very nice weekend. Be safe out there. Take care of each other. Wear your mask. Get your shots. Do all that stuff that makes us get back to normal, whatever that is. All right? Have a great weekend. I will see you back here on Monday.